All right, I'm going to try to talk about something and not get myself in trouble. Yeah. It's kind of my whole life. Sometimes it feels that way. But a lot of people have been asking me about Valve and a DMCA notice takedown of a community mod. So now, I've said it, and I'll say it again. I'm not going to talk about things that I don't know about or that are not public about Valve. So I'm not going to talk about the particulars of anything. I'm not going to go ask anybody about the particulars of anything. I'm not a Valve news source. I'm just a guy who worked at Valve for 12 years and now talks about games and makes games. I make games. I should say make games first, then talks about games. But lately, while we're in this cycle, I've been talking a lot. And so, I think a lot of people are like, well, man, Valve's really not getting beat up on this. The community's kind of mad, but a lot of the sites are covering it and they're giving Valve the benefit of the doubt. And let's talk about that. Now, clearly I'm biased, right? I have friends there. I work there. I care about people there. But Valve has traditionally supported mods. They've supported a crazy variety of mods. From the original Counter-Strike to just embracing people using their content and creating new games out of it, or extensions of games out of it, right? But on our channel, on our Discord, we play Valve mods all the time, right? We played Double Action Boogaloo the other day. That's got Nick kind of got Nick in it from Left 4 Dead, as well as built on top of the Source engine. We play those games all the time. So Valve in general has a supportive issue around mods, right? I think we can agree on that. Can we agree on that? All right. So then why this one? So now often, as you get older, especially, you realize, while you may not know the particulars of this one, if you knew all of these other ones and they were right there, you give them the benefit of the doubt, right? And so while working at Valve, we did support mods. And not only that, we had talked about how do you expand mods even further? And it ends up, there's a lot of legality around this, right? There's always the, hey, let's just wave our hands and make this good. But you can tell when it gets serious when the lawyers are involved, because the Valve lawyers are expensive and they're super smart. Even if they think the Mariners is a good baseball team, it's not. The Cleveland Guardians are way better. But they are, right? And I've worked with them a bunch. And in fact, how's this? They had a fight. This is like the crazy stuff that they fight and they have to think about is there is a patent for sending an SMS message through Facebook that can activate a app or something like that. And so I showed how you can use Facebook. This is back in the day. I don't have Facebook anymore. Don't have Facebook. How you can use Facebook to send a invite that someone could jump in and play Day of Defeat Source. The minute I showed the lawyer that, the lawyer's like, do not delete any of your emails. You are now in a lawsuit. And if you ever wondered why at Valve, if I worked with you, why I always walked up to people's desks and never sent emails, that's one reason. You learn that pretty quick, right? You learn that at any company, but companies that have been sued in a lot of lawsuits, you learn, what you put in email is going to be read in court. But they take all of that seriously and they work on that. So it's like I interacted with the lawyers a bunch on that. Kind of. Not really. I don't have no idea what happened to it. But also when EFF sued Valve early on over something, I remember donating to EFF so I can get an EFF shirt and walk into Holtman's office a week later. Because I still support EFF. They're a good organization. A little less prominent. I don't know. I should check what's going on with them. All right, sidetracking. We're still not talking about what you guys want me to talk about. I'm just giving you background here for some reference, right? But so Valve has tried to think of ways to open things up, but there's a lot of legality around it. How's this? Worked with another company who wanted to do a TF2 tie-in with their game. They wanted to get some of the voice work to be able to use in an ad. This is a YouTube ad where the voice would be playing in the background. That YouTube ad could only run for a year because that's how the legal agreement we have with the actors union for the voice acting for third-party game. It gets complicated, right? And if I say union there, I'm not saying union derisively. Unions are good for you and me. In that case, I was negotiating with the union, but they were still looking out for their voice actors and they were doing a good job of it and making sure they weren't getting taken or just simply getting money where they could, which is not a bad idea. But so there's a lot of that kind of things hanging in with any of it. And so you want to look at a couple of things on these. Did the mod take stolen code, right? Because we all know there's some stolen code out there. If they're built on that, I won't play it. And I understand why Valve won't accept it. Did they take assets, art assets, be it models or character models or world meshes or voice acting, right? Like that will have to be like, no, or you have to get an agreement for it, right? Look at Gary's mod. Gary's mod was nothing but Half-Life source stuff. But now the new thing, Sandbox, has none of that built into it. It doesn't have that license. So anybody using that does not have access to those characters and likeness, right? It's a different beast. I respect Gary a lot, even if he pokes fun at me here. But that's like he wanted to not be having the license he was under of owing Valve a larger chunk because he was using all of their assets. He wanted to create his own and so create Sandbox in its own way. And so then anything derivative of that doesn't have access to those things either. Where if you created something derivative in Gary's mod, right, you had access to all of that. That's different. Right. And so that all plays into that, right? And I don't know any conversations people have had. I don't know any back and forth. I know while we were working on Team Fortress 2, before we had announced it even, I think, Fortress Forever started. And I think it's Fortress, I should look. Maybe it's on Steam, maybe it's not still on Steam. But like there was no animosity, there was no hard feelings. There was a competing product using the name partially, but building all their own assets and all their own game and making a bunch of other choices. Valve supported that. Valve did not have anything against that, right? And so when a DMCA notice does come down, it tends to be for good reasons. And that's why people are backing Valve on this or assuming the best. And I'll have to do the same, right? Again, I have no knowledge of this. I have no understanding of this. I'm not going to go ask anybody at Valve about this, especially the lawyers are really expensive. But they're nice people. But for you, that's a way to think about it. And there is a limit to that, right? You can't be like, oh my God, it's like the 50th time that I've done this and I've never done anything nice. Then that means the company's changed. But I don't think when you look at one-off of a product that wasn't actively being developed anymore, can you say, oh, this is a new Valve or this is something changed? Gabe's still there. Gabe's part of these conversations. But it does get complicated with all of this. Okay, how's this? I remember once, because we're talking legal stuff, is trying to think of like, how do we get where you don't have to buy a headset and you can just lease it. Well, no, leases are horrible. We'll make great strides in solving and simplifying lease agreements and blah blah blah. No. Ends up all that horrible stuff in lease agreements is there for a reason, because humans are horrible, right? And so like that kind of legal back and forth stuff exists because of the world, the people ripping people off and being bad players. And so sometimes good players need to act in ways that make them uncomfortable because of the set of bad players, I guess is what I'm saying. And so I don't know anybody on the mod team there. That's got to hurt. I wish them the best. But it's always, God, I've gotten in so many arguments with people who are like, Disney kills creativity because they've trademarked their art assets. That's not creativity. Creativity is go crazy, make something on your own, go nuts. But still, I get people who, paying loving attention to that, but equally taking Valve assets and hosting them and storing them outside of the ecosystem is a problem thing. So that is probably a unhelpful answer, unsatisfying.